What is going on, guys? Welcome to our first wildcard weekend showdown here between the Colts and the Bills. This is Hold the Door DFS at Fantasy Sports Insight. I have you covered for every single showdown slate this weekend and in the entire playoffs. So if you are new to this channel, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. It is the best way to support us at Fantasy Sports Insight, and it is greatly appreciated. So let's get into it. We will continue to pride ourselves here on making these videos not only, straight to the point, but you're not going to have to sit through a half an hour to figure out where I'm going to be at on Saturday at noon in my builds. You're going to have a good chance to know just by watching this 10-minute video on where we are at. If you are new to our channel, before you get into the odds here, check out our NBA content. It is phenomenal. Starting five every day, like 5 minutes or less, gives you a great starting point. Obviously, NBA has been crazy with news, so you always have to recheck back in, but a great place to start. So let's start here with these lines here. As always, I like to use the book lines just to kind of give me an idea where I think the game flow will go. The beauty of playing with the Bills is that game flow does not really matter. They are going to continue to throw the ball. We saw them up 3-4 scores against Denver in the second half. They kept throwing the ball. You saw them up 2 scores against Miami, and Josh Allen was going to sit out the rest of the half. Scored 2 more touchdowns throwing the ball. So this is the playoffs. They're going to continue to play to win the game, and I think the Bills' best way to even run out the clock if they were to have a big lead is short passes. They have Diggs, Brown, Beasley. They're going to throw the ball. So I love that from a DFS perspective. So let's get into the slate. The Bills are -6.5, as you can see here. Almost a touchdown favorite, which is pretty big for an NFL playoff game. It's a big line in an NFL game anyway, let alone a playoff game. So Bills are at home, and the Colts, they're okay. But, Phillip Rivers, I don't think is somebody that is going to be leading the Colts to the Super Bowl this year. So let's get into the Bills. We will start with the Bills first. They are the favored team. And Josh Allen, lock him in your lineups. I don't care if it's cash or GPP. He is going to be part of the winning GPP lineup unless he gets hurt and we somehow see Matt Barkley. But I don't think that's the case. And I also think the 1% of those times those lineups win are not usually worth, not even 1%. When you're playing backup quarterbacks and stuff, like when Mariota won that GPP, it's not a great play. So don't do it. Josh Allen, 12,800. I think in a playoff game like this, you're looking at a median projection between 20 and 25 points with upside of 30 plus if he gets in the end zone rushing the ball a couple times. So I just don't even know how you fade him. This slate is going to be top heavy for the most part, and we'll see that in a little bit when we get to the Colts side of the ball. But we obviously have Stephon Diggs at 11,800, former Viking who is just his career was great in Minnesota. It's gotten even better now with Josh Allen. So, the return of John Brown, I don't think hurts somebody like Diggs. I think it hurts somebody like Beasley. Now, obviously, the target shares here were massive, but I think his role is so secure that I don't think Brown takes anything away. They might take one more deep shot to Brown that could have gone to Diggs, but in general, I find it really hard to consider fading Diggs in this type of game. So the next comes down to John Brown and Beasley, and I think these two fall into more of a GPP category for me because I think they take away value from each other. And the fact that they take value away from each other at still a decent price tag, if you're going to try to use Allen and Diggs, you're likely going to have to fade any stud from Indy like Taylor or Rivers to consider John Brown or Beasley. And I just don't know that that's optimal. I think there's just a little bit too much uncertainty with that. Now, if you're telling me to pick between Brown or Beasley in a vacuum, I prefer Brown's upside over Beasley's floor of running short slot routes. Because I think they don't rely on Beasley for short routes because Diggs can run that just as easily and get open. I mean, his hands are so good. He's so reliable in the short passing game. And with John Brown, we did see when he did play, they're going to take their long shots with him. Look at the average, air yards and the yards per catch are pretty good. So I think, they might take some shots at John Brown. I just think, he cannibalizes Beasley more than anything. So the running back situation is likely a stay away for me as well for Buffalo. Zach Moss is definitely, I think if you look at the books, he's probably projected for like 12 and a half carries, over under. So I think he's definitely going to get more of the work on the ground, but I don't think he's going to catch a ball in the air or really unlikely. So I think if he doesn't score a touchdown, I think there's a greater chance that Singletary outscores him with, 2 or 3 catches in the air. He's going to get some, like change of pace, draw type plays. So I think I prefer Singletary over Moss, but I think you're just really shooting for a more upside play than the kickers that are great cash plays on this slate. Same with like somebody like Gabriel Davis. I'm not really sure how the Bills are going to use him. I think they might rotate him in with John Brown and Beasley, but we don't really have a good sample size of like how he was utilized. Like he was utilized like really sparingly when Brown was active and Beasley, and there's some games where he was totally MIA. So I think at 4,800, it's really GPP to try to play a wide receiver 4 here, which would I assume he would classify in with John Brown and Beasley back. Now, if Beasley is questionable, if he for some reason misses, I doubt it. He's been singing and recording, so he seems like he's pretty healthy to me. Then that would definitely activate somebody like Beasley to be, or Davis to be an option, and would upgrade John Brown. Dawson Knox is probably a fade for me. I think it's just more of a touchdown dependent upside play over the kickers. Love Tyler Bass at 3,600. Total fade for me is Isaiah McKenzie in cash. I think people might go to him after they've seen the last game, but they quickly forget he had a punt return touchdown, had touchdowns without the starters in the game. All their receiving core was not playing, so he was a great like week 17. The starters aren't going to play the whole game. Let's get in the wide receiver 4 or 5. He'll be in this game. So total fade for me. The rest on here, I think TJ Yeldon is going to be activated, so he'd be like running back 3. He has seen some passing work in the past. In week 5, I guess that's the last time he played. But I don't really think it's something that you're going to see him play. He's clearly behind the other 2 in the pecking order. If you want to go for like a Lee Smith, Tyler Kroft, goal line, play action touchdown, that is for you GPPers, not for me. So let's get to the Indy side. Now, remember, when you walk away, after we go through the Indianapolis here, I'm going to give away my 3 favorite cash plays, 2 favorite values, and my fade, and then likely just look through some builds, okay? I always want you to be able to get out of something like this a potential build that you might be in a 2v2, a 3v3, maybe you're swapping captains, but I want you to be able to walk away and feel like you're ready to build for today's slate. So the big question will be Jonathan Taylor or not. We'll get to the builds here in a second, but if you plug in those 3 guys, you're already looking at, like sub 3K per player left, which is really hard to build. But I think the Colts have finally said, like, Jonathan Taylor, you are the guy. So last game was an outlier. Jacksonville's defense is awful against the run. Not that this is a bad matchup by any means, but I think, you're going to probably see 15 to 20 touches, a good chance he scores. He has high touchdown equity for them in the red zone. But I don't think he catches a lot of balls. So I think they're going to really use Hines for that. And I'll talk about him in a second. So I think this slate really comes down to Taylor and Rivers. And then if you decide not to play either, then you're likely going to the other side of the ball and trying to get in somebody like John Brown. T.Y. Hilton is a okay play as well, especially if you think they're losing. But I kind of like, if I'm going to play T.Y. Hilton, I would rather somehow correlate him with Rivers. I don't know that I'd want to play Hilton and Taylor. I don't know. It's just really tough to get there. So we'll get into the builds in a second, but what you do with Indy right here will decide a lot of this. Like, a lot of people are going to be plugging in Diggs and Allen as their first 2 clicks. So do you want Jonathan Taylor? If it's a game that Indy gets up, Jonathan Taylor will be fed the ball a ton, especially with Wilkins out. And Hines is the only other guy in that I think they'll use just mostly in the pass game. I think Taylor could get, 25 carries if they ever have a lead or a lead late in this game. This is the one that I do want to talk about. I think he is just a phenomenal mid-range play. I love his pass catching upside lately. Wilkins is out. They elevated another player from the practice squad today. The running back 3, Anderson, I think is his name, which I think just solidifies the role that Hines is going to have here. You're going to see, 3 to 5 carries likely, just when he's spelling Taylor, but then he's going to be the third down guy. And we know Rivers' arm isn't that strong. And if they're losing, dump off. I think Hines easily gets double digits in a case like that. So I love Hines at 6,400. I don't know the build that will land me on him yet, but I think he is a great play at 6,400. After that, you're going to get into the receivers of Pascal and Pittman Jr., who I think both are viable at 4,400 and definitely have upside. I like the upside here of somebody like Pascal over a kicker if you can get there. I think the kickers are safer, but I think the upside of somebody like Pascal or Pittman Jr. Can definitely sometimes outweigh the safety of a floor in a kicker. So definitely not upset or not. It's not a bad play to get to these two receivers because they're both too cheap. Kickers, obviously, I always like. And in playoff games, I think points will even be more important, that they're not going to leave 3 points on the board as often, especially early in the game. So then let's get Colts D. I'm not playing. Then let's get to what is the tight end roulette wheel of the Indianapolis Colts, because they all on paper by their price look like a really good play. Jack Doyle played in week 17, played the most snaps, I think 54% of the snaps. Okay. He had 3 targets, 17 yards. At 2,600, he would have paid off that price tag. At 4,800, that would have been too expensive for me. Even in week 16, when they were losing, he had 4 catches on 6 targets. I think that's a pretty good play there. And as you can see, Buffalo is not very good against the tight ends. Then you have Trey Burton, I think, who played the least amount of snaps at 35% last week, had no targets, but has had some other bigger games, but most of those were with Jack Doyle out. So I think the likelihood that Jack Doyle is in and is just a better, run blocker than Burton is a higher likelihood that he's going to get more snaps than somebody like Trey Burton. Mo Alley Cox, 1 target last game. I think he played 41% of the snaps. Again, somebody that is also a good run blocker. So I think out of the 3, they're priced. Jack Doyle being priced the most expensive is correct. And I think he is actually in play at 2,600 because I think the game script would favor using somebody like him. So let's get into the builds. Let's talk about my 3 favorite cash plays are Allen, Diggs, and Jonathan Taylor. I can't get away from Jonathan Taylor right now, but when I start building, if I feel like I'm restrictive of not getting, I never want to my last piece just be like, oh, I'll just throw in my last guy. I think that's a really fish move. You want to love your build, and you have to really make sure the projections make sense. If Taylor does not allow me to finish with, one of those 2 Indy receivers or the kickers and maybe Jack Doyle, then I need to pivot down to somebody like Rivers or T.Y. Hilton. I think has enough upside at 8,000 to pay off that tag. So let's just play with the build. So let's just say you put in Diggs, okay, at captain. No, let's just say Allen. Allen's probably going to be the most popular captain play. Right off the bat, if we put this in, you put these 3 guys in, and even if you put in Doyle, you're not going to get to the kickers. You're not going to get to kickers. You're not going to get to Pascal. You're not going to get to Pittman Jr. If I take Taylor out and put in Rivers, I still can't get to the kickers. Now, if I go a cheaper captain, even going down to Diggs is really only going to give me a little bit more. Still, I don't even think enough to work with because Blankenship's 34, and I would still be 100 short of getting to the second kicker. So I think you're going to have to be creative. I don't. Rivers probably is going to be out of play for me, potentially because he's too closely priced to Taylor. And I think T.Y. Hilton presents a similar projection, maybe 5 to 6 points less, and just in terms of, and you lose a little bit of floor, obviously. But I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how those builds play out. If you get kind of crazy and you say like, oh yeah, I like Hines too, throw Hines at captain, and now you plug in these three guys, you're still looking at something really tough to figure out. But if you go a little bit more balanced, like T.Y. Hilton, then you can go Jack Doyle, and you can even upgrade your captain here. You could not even Jack Doyle. You wouldn't even need him at that point. Maybe you go Bass and then you go Pittman Jr. or you go Blankenship and Pascal. So the kickers and Doyle are my favorite values in the slate. My fade of the slate is going to be Beasley and Brown. Unless Beasley is out, then that would upgrade Brown. So again, thanks a lot for listening. We greatly appreciate all of the support here at Fantasy Sports Insight. Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out all of our other great content. See ya.